There's a lot of task coordination between departments and project teams. Again, you get to make the decisions, and then you say, I really work well with so-and-so, and so you tell your superior who you work with. Or you don't work well with so-and-so, so maybe you guys should be on independent projects. This is something that you decide. So this type of horizontal communication is very beneficial in this type of setting. It's very, very effective. That's the biggest pro of this type of organization. However, the con is that it's not very efficient. It's very time-consuming. Think about it. If you're in an organization and you have a problem and you decide to work it out, and you have a meeting with that group and you try to figure out what the problem is, and then it kind of lingers on and something else builds up and you have another meeting, and it just kind of takes time for the whole process to unravel and for you to figure out what's going on. Versus the upward communication flow, you tell your superior, I've got this problem, you deal with it. And they deal with it, and it's pretty fast. Or the downward communication flow, and they say, there's a problem and you guys need to cut it out, and they deal with it real fast, and you pretty much do what they say. And that's a very fast response. So that's one thing, is that it's a con. However, it's very effective. So once the process is worked out, then everybody's happy. And it's not like you were told what to do. You're very happy with the result. A lot of Americans aren't accustomed to this horizontal communication. And the reason why is because time is money in America. However, a lot of new small organizations are really using this horizontal communication within their organization because they see the benefit of the increased morale and the increased ownership in the issues that occur in that organization. So you'll usually see a lot of the horizontal communication within small groups. So those are the formal communication models, and you can kind of think back to each of the three structures, the upward, the downward, and the horizontal, and you can figure out which you think you would work best in. And that way you'll know before you start interviewing or start deciding to be initiated into a certain organization, so that you know if your personality will meet that type of organization. Well, there's a different type of organizational communication structure, which is the informal communication. And I think all of us are familiar with informal communication because remember, we're creatures of organization and social. We like to be in social situations. And informal communication is just that. The definition is it's episodes of interaction that do not reflect officially designated channels of communication. So essentially, it's opposite of what we just spoke about with with formal communication. Formal communication is prescribed, already determined areas or structure of communication. Informal communication is kind of a free-for-all. Whatever happens, happens. And what we like to accustom it to is like a grapevine. And what it says is a grapevine emerges from social and personal interests of the employees rather than formal requirements of the organization. Informal communication is inherent and even a necessary aspect of the organizational life. Let's put this in terms that we all can understand. If you're in a classroom right now, or even if you're at home watching this, think about the type of people that you are hanging out with, whether it be friends in the classroom or family members around you. But think of the type of people that you hang out with. You initially create this niche around you. You're surrounded by your friends or people that you want to meet, that you might be for some reason attracted to because they have the same interests that you have. So you become friends with these people, and they are friends with other people, and they're friends with other people, and they're friends with other people. And essentially, you've kind of got this grapevine idea. Well, let's say I give you a message. I communicate a message to you. Well, what you're going to do then is probably tell your friends or the people that are around you. And then they'll tell their friends, and they'll tell their friends. Now, some of these people, when they're being told, will not tell anybody else. The communication will just stop at that point. Other people might tell like 5 or 6 or 10 people. So it varies. So you've got that grapevine kind of effect on things. And that's exactly what informal communication is. It just kind of goes. And if the message gets reached to everybody, it gets reached. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And there's a pro there. It's very relaxed. It's very comfortable. We like this kind of setting. We feel very comfortable in this setting. But there is a con, because it should not be a substitute for an ineffective formal system. A lot of small businesses that haven't quite created the structure in their organization have this type of informal communication. I don't know if any of you work for a small business or even a small organization like a study group or something really small that you guys are in, and there's no structure really. And so it shouldn't be substituted for that formal structure because it kind of gets chaotic. And sometimes people don't get messages. If you're supposed to meet at the library at 9 o'clock, well, if there's no telephone tree that you're supposed to pass the message down to, it's just kind of whoever finds out kind of thing, and somebody misses the message, well, that's not very effective. And so that you do have to implement some sort of formal system in this organization. So that's about informal communication. What I want you to do now is reflect about what we just talked about. We talked about organizational communication as a whole, and then we looked at the different types of structures within organization. We both looked at the formal level of organizational communication, and then we looked also at the informal level of communication. And I just want you to kind of internalize where you fit in. Think about those stories that I was telling you to think about. And how you can relate to these types of organizations. Okay, let's go ahead and move on. If you need more time, go ahead and just press pause. Let's move on to one specific area of organizational communication. It's organizational culture. And actually, this is from Gertz and Pananowski in chapter 21. It's the cultural approach to organizations theory. And let's go ahead and look at that. This first quote that I'm going to show you is actually very intriguing, I think. And Gertz and Pananowski say that organizational culture is not just another piece of the puzzle. It is the puzzle. From our point of view, culture is not something an organization has. A culture is something an organization is. And I think this is interesting because a lot of us, when you first think about organizational culture, and maybe I should have introduced it that way, just think about organizational culture. When I initially thought organizational culture, I thought, oh, it's just one aspect of the organization, just like structure is, like we just spoke about. But what Gertz and Pananowski say is that it actually is the organization. The culture is the organization. It's not a puzzle piece that you stick into the puzzle to complete it, but it's rather the entire puzzle itself. Let's kind of assess this a little bit more to see what they're talking about. Their definition of organizational culture is its socially constructed reality. So now we know what organizational communication is. We talked about that at the beginning of the lecture. We know that it's transactions with human behaviors from two or more people. Now look at organizational culture. It's socially constructed, so it has to happen with people. Reality, so it's our reality. It's what our organization is about. Culture is shared meaning and shared understanding. It's what our organization is about. So again, think of those organizations that you've been involved in. And think about all of the different aspects of it. Everything that you think about and that you and your coworkers or friends or what have you, you're always having shared understanding and shared meaning. You understand something in that culture or in that organization that outsiders might not understand.